Hey everybody, welcome to the second half session of the live day trading room brought to you by Trading Capital. So as we take into the close, the last 15 minutes, the spider S&P 500 is breaking down from this bear flag pattern. You can see all day we put in this bearish consolidation, and it looks to be that the S&P is finally breaking that consolidation pattern. Now why is it breaking? You can simply correlate it to the dollar. The dollar is potentially putting in this basing formation, this inverse head and shoulders, and it's looking to potentially move up to the upside. So the markets are under some pressure. So we'll just keep an eye on this pattern, and the downside target takes you to about this 39.60 area. And we'll see if the selling picks up. Now the interesting thing about the markets today is Apple. Apple's obviously the largest weighted cap stock, so we have to keep an eye on it. And what transpired today is Apple retraced to the breakdown zone. So this massive trend line where Apple bounced off numerous times has now completely retraced, and looking like it's trying to bounce off of that level. So this is kind of a negative, the fact that it's acting as major resistance, which does leave the markets very vulnerable, considering it's the largest cap, it has the heaviest weighting in the indices, and when you factor in that the S&P is also trading at resistance, this could pose a tremendous risk in the near term for stocks and the stock market. Overall, Tesla's the outperformer on the day. We were able to capitalize on a beautiful day trade short, but Tesla's up over 7% on the session, so that is awesome to see for Tesla. Oil's up on the session as well, but you're also running into some near-term resistance. So let me just trend line in here just so I can put into perspective where the price action is trading. Look at that beautiful resistance. The big question is if we can confirm above this level, oil likely sees the $90 barrel level, but up until that point, you still have to respect the resistance. So we're getting a little bit of a harder sell-off into the close here, which is interesting to see. We obviously have a couple earnings after the bell. Interactive Brokers, United Airlines. We're short United Airlines, so we will obviously be on deck for that. Now the markets are up today, or were up today. They've actually just slightly turned negative, but they were up all of most of the day, and reason being you had semiconductors up, so tech was leading the charge. When you factor in that all sectors are now starting to go negative except for tech, that's one of the reasons why the markets were able to hold on to most of the gains throughout the day was simply because of tech. And now, as we speak, all sectors are down and negative on the session except for energy, which is up 3 cents, and tech is up 39 cents. So every sector has rolled over at this point in time, which is showing there is weakness. Healthcare is an interesting one to look at because that was positive on the session, looked like it had a tremendous amount of strength, but it has rolled over. So we're just going to continue to analyze this S&P and look for any opportunities. We won't get a day trade right now unless something miraculously falls in our lap. But it does look to be that the spider's S&P 500 is triggering this bear flag breakdown. So we'll have to continue to monitor that. Typically after a breakdown, you can see a retrace back to the upper or the low end of this channel before rolling over. But let's just see how that unfolds. Bitcoin's interesting now because let's look at the hourly chart.
You're having some sound issues, but just recognize that you are having some sound issues. You're trying to fix it.
We're just having a little bit of sound issues right now. We're trying to fix the echo in the background, so I do apologize for the inconvenience of the sound. But we do apologize for the echo. The S&P's coming down a little bit faster now. And the dollar hasn't really moved. Yields have upticked slightly. The volume is very light in the market, so that does favor upside bias.
and auto
when you
stocks
have light
actually
volume
among
cells.
some of your outperformers here on the day, but still some concern out there when it comes to some of the cyclical sectors. Katie, the idea here that maybe people want to see a few more earnings, maybe a few more economic data points, and of course, we're still, what, I don't know, a week and 2 more weeks until we get to that next Fed meeting.
I know.
S&P's catching a little bit of a bounce here, but you're still trading outside of this pattern, this bear flag break. So tomorrow we do have a pretty big day for economic data. We will just go through some of the data that we should keep an eye on. So tomorrow we have retail sales at 8:30. We have PPI month over month and year over year at 8:30 as well. So those are two market moving data events. And core PPI is a leading indicator for the Fed if they do look at leading indicators on the rare occasion, but they do look at core. And PPI generally leads CPI. So it's an interesting data point to keep an eye on. And then you do have a couple Fed members, or Bostich at least, speaking tomorrow at 9. You also have the red book, beige book. And then Harker also speaks in the afternoon. So there could be a lot of jawboning tomorrow. That's what the Fed loves to do, is talk. But right now there's really nothing new to report. We just sit back, let the markets do what the markets want to do. Spiders back testing the lows. If you take out this pivot over here, this 39.84, then you'll have some support around this at the lower end of this green impulse move up. That'll be your next short-term support, but it likely means you do slice through that if you lose this pivot. So you're still trying to lose that pivot. You're going to test it. My downside max move today, which I don't think is likely, but the maximum downside is about 39.57. 39.57, which is right around down here, is my max downside move. So in the event we did see some sort of a massive sell-off, that is my max calculated move for the day. 39.57. I'm not saying it's going to hit there. It's likely not going to, but that is the measured move down for the day. In terms of volume, it has been pretty light today. On the S&P, the SPY, it's just under 50 million, 48.8, so we'll probably likely trade over 50 million or 60 million as some final volume usually comes in late into the session. So we're seeing the spiders break that bear flag and the weakness is continuing. This is all on the back that the dollar hasn't even rallied. So if the dollar shows some signs of strength, that'll likely mean the spiders will continue to sell even more. So now we're testing this pivot. You do have minor support. If you lose that pivot and close below, secondary support is here, but it does create a lot of technical damage on the chart. Again, we discussed Apple retracing to that key trend line. This is a big level for Apple and the markets. In terms of Bitcoin, there's a lot of bias on Bitcoin that this is a bull flag forming. This is not a bull flag forming. That's incorrect technicals. This is actually potentially forming an upsloping wedge pattern as seen by two trend lines. Let me just correct that. Upsloping wedge patterns have a very high degree of breaking lower, so don't be fooled by this consolidation. This is not bullish. This is actually potentially bearish on the hourly chart. Now on the daily, if you were to trade it and consolidate inside of this green bar, then that technically would be bullish, but you don't want to see the consolidation occurring upsloping. So back to the S&P, it's catching a bid here. It's put in a 10-minute intraday bottoming tail. But again, it's light volume, so we have to respect that nature, that these bounces are very, very easy and are likely to happen from the light volume session. So it looks like we're going to get that retrace back to the yellow bottom of the range. So the 2-year yield is negative on the session, the 10-year yield has slowly just eked out a gain, and the 20-year yield is negative as well. Miners have seen a lot of sell pressure today, the likes of Newmont, GDX, which could be anticipating that dollar breakout. You know, if we take a look at gold, gold's actually been down on the session, even though the dollar is actually negative. So typically that could be a little bit of a relative weakness point for gold, and a little bit of a relative strength basis for the dollar. So, and then if you look at, if you follow the old saying that miners lead the actual physical metals, if you look at, say, Newmont down on the session, or GDX down on the session tremendously. So GDX is down 3.34%. So if we're going to see the metals or the miners lead the metal down, which is what happened, we saw miners actually break out and lead the actual metals, the physical commodity price higher, then we should likely see the miners also lead the metals price if weakness continues to occur. Microsoft also just announced that they're laying off about 5% of their workforce, 11,000 employees, so that's yet again another mega cap. Expecting, obviously, their earnings and business to weaken in the near term, or else they wouldn't be laying off those people. So you have to really pay attention to the mega cap companies because they hold the most amount of wealth, the most amount of revenue, the most amount of business, the most amount of employees. They hold a lot of power when it comes to interpreting the macroeconomic data trends, because they look at a lot of data themselves, and they wouldn't be laying off 11,000 people if they didn't have to, or if they didn't expect the business model and revenue to most likely decline in the next 1 to 2 years. Now, believe it or not, firing staff is actually bullish for the underlying stock. It gives investors, you know, a little bit of wiggle room to potentially trade and scalp some upside, as the business model does cut costs, and a lot of the times the market hasn't priced in a jobs cut in a company. So if it's a company of Microsoft's size cutting 5% of their workforce, that naturally will change slightly their profit and revenue and expenses. So that's why you could see a little bit of a bullish move up in Microsoft. And it's really interesting on Microsoft is because Microsoft was down around 1% on the day, and it actually has rallied, and I believe it's gone positive. Yes, it has. So it was actually down all the way to 237, and it's actually gone positive now. So that's very interesting to see. S&P is trying to put in a little bit of a bottoming tail on the 15. It looks to be doing it on the 10, but it's retracing back to that breakdown zone. So let's see if we can get that retrace. So the markets are closed. The S&P did finish down on the day. I just want to say congratulations on the day trades that we completed today. It was an excellent job trading. We went 4 for 4 in the live day trade room. So please stay tuned for much of the price action that we issue alerts for and live stream in the morning, because there is ample opportunity to go around, and we just care about sharing valuable information. But overall, excellent job in today's session, and we will see you in the live day trade room tomorrow morning for the open and for the close. Have a great rest of the evening and afternoon, and we'll see you on the charts tomorrow. Take care, everybody.
The 200-day sitting at 39.78, so we still remain about 12 points above that. The NASDAQ going to finish the day in the green, up by about 0.1%, and the Russell 2000 in the opposite direction, lower by about 0.1% on the day.
Yeah, that 200-day on the S&P continuing to tease us, right? And we'll see where we go from here. Having said that, if I look at the S&P 500, most names in the average lower today, 308 to be exact. Katie, we got 190 gaining some ground, and I know you're going to dig a little bit deeper into those industry groups.
Yeah, if you look at the industry groups, it's also mostly red. We have 24 of them, just 8 are in the green right now.